Hi, everyone. Welcome to the final session of TCCA. And if you've made it this far, you got a treat coming. So, for those of you who stuck around all day, all evening, we got a good one for you. We have Miss Elizabeth King from Flipping Good Tech here, and she's going to drop some jewels about Polaroid notes for you. Again, I think you're going to love this. It's going to be fantastic. We're going to look for you guys to participate in the chat. Also, look in the chat. I'm going to be dropping a presentation link in there and some other goodies for you. So again, pay attention in that chat. I'm going to drop some links for you. You can follow along with the presentation. And we're going to turn it over to Elizabeth King with Flipping Tech and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hosea.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you guys for hanging in there, like Hosea said, to the very end of the TCCA conference. I hope that this ends your day on a really good note, because this presentation right here makes me super excited. And I have to say the reason why is because it was birthed, and you'll find out why I use that word. It was birthed out of a problem that I was having a couple of years ago. And this really provided a solution to that problem for me. So I hope that you guys find some value in this session. I like to call Polaroid notes, using Google Slides to take dynamic notes in an instant. Now, I will say, Hosea put the link in the chat for the presentation. The links for everything are also going to be on the Sketch app, right? So you can go back and access those after this presentation's over. And I'll also be sending an email out to you guys as well. And in addition, but wait, there's more. If you go to polaroidnotes.com, I have a whole website devoted to pretty much everything to do with Polaroid notes. So check that out when you get some time. And without further ado, let's kind of get started here. So again, thank you, Hosea, for the introduction. My name's Elizabeth King. You can follow me on Twitter at Elizabeth King 88. My colleague Daryl is on Twitter at EdTech He's not here right now because I'll tell you why in a minute. How about that? I'm going to hold. Some of you know, if you've been in our sessions earlier today, you already know why he's not here. But for those of you who don't, I'm not going to spoil the surprise just yet. I'll tell you in just a second. But let me go ahead and start with these pictures. I told you guys the name of this is Polaroid Notes, and I kind of came up with this concept on my own. And the reason why I chose Polaroid Notes was because this note-taking strategy is essentially like capturing a picture of content or what you've learned, you're learning, like much like a Polaroid camera. And then the way that a Polaroid camera works is when you take a picture, you can share that picture in an instant. It prints out right there. You can share it. So when we use Google Slides to take our notes this way, then we're also able to share them in an instant, and very much like Polaroids. So I asked Daryl, let's talk about the pictures for a second. I said, hey, Daryl, I want to put some pictures of us in this little Polaroid frame on our slideshow. And I said, can you send me a picture of you before COVID, like a selfie? A pre-COVID picture, right? Because COVID's just messed us up in a lot of ways. So Daryl sends me this picture. There's mine to the left. And I thought my picture's not looking too bad, right? I thought it's not terrible. I took it in my car like most of my selfies. And I was like, this is a pretty decent one. Well, then Daryl shows up with this like professional portrait style photo that he had taken with his wife. And I was like, what in the world? So I'm like, all right, well, I can't wait to see what his post-COVID picture looks like, because here's mine. And I have to say, all the ladies in the audience can probably relate to this, and I'll tell you why. When COVID hit, the salons closed down. All the hair salons were closed. I couldn't go get my roots done. It was a hot mess. So I could not wait for my hair salon to be back open again. So I'm like, all right, so surely Daryl's got some post-COVID traumatic experience with his picture. So I'm like, okay, Daryl, what's your post-COVID picture? And this is what he sends me. And I was like, man, that's probably pretty accurate, because men are they have it so much easier than women. Do you agree? If you're a woman in this chat, I would like to know if you agree with that statement. It seems like men have a lot easier, right? Okay, so that leads me to where my colleague Daryl is right now. He's actually at the hospital. His beautiful wife, Sabrina, had a baby 2 weeks early. They're both doing great, healthy, last night at about 9 o'clock. In our first two sessions of the day, he actually joined us in those sessions from the hospital, and we had a really great time. That guy, he is like, he does not need caffeine. He doesn't need any kind of stimulant at all. He is on his game all the time, super energetic and positive, and he's just glowing today. The love and the passion he has right now for his wife and that new baby girl are contagious. So if you want to give him a shout out on Twitter, I know he would love that and he would appreciate that. Okay. I've seen some of your chats in there. Thank you for agreeing with me about your husband's after COVID, because now I feel like I'm not alone in that. All right, so let's talk about what Polaroid notes are and the session goals today. So one of my good friends, Melissa Balcom, I used to work with her in my former school district. She helped me come up with these clever little session goals by using photography terms, right? So our first session goal today is we're going to snap to what Polaroid notes are. Then we're going to click on to why you would use them, why they're important. And then we're going to zoom in on how to actually make them. Okay. So those are our session goals. Now, this is the first thing I want to start with because I need to give you some background information on Polaroid notes. When I was in my former district, I was a professional / digital learning coordinator. And like you all, many of you guys, we go to conferences, right? For our professional development to get better. So we would go to these conferences, and one that we attend every year is TCEA, which is a several days worth conference. So it's a TCEA, and I wanted to take notes and absorb all my learning. So I would attend like 3-4 sessions. Well, actually, probably like 4 or 5 sessions a day times 3 or 4. And that was a whole lot of sessions. I don't do simple math real well. Is one of my friends here that I know that can do simple math and tell us how many sessions that would be? If I did 4 times 3 days, that would be like 12. Okay. So what you see on the screen here is a Google Doc, an image of a Google Doc. This is how I took my notes. And I would have like 2, sometimes 3 pages that look just like that per session. Again, I'm not a math person, and my math teachers would probably be mad at me for saying that. But if I have 2 to 3 pages of notes that look like that for those 12 sessions that I attended that week, do you know how many pages of notes that look like that there are? A ton. There are so many pages of notes. So what I found was, in my role, I should be going to these conferences, learning what I can learn with the purpose of applying it and sharing it back with my school district when I went back to my district. But what I found myself to be doing is like I never looked at them again because it was too cumbersome for me. So what I would like to know in the chat right now, we're going to take just about a minute, maybe less, for you guys to drop some things that you notice about these notes in the chat. Tell me your honest opinion. What are some positive things that you notice about them? And maybe what are some things that could be improved? So if you can just start dropping things in the chat about my old way of taking notes, that would be amazing. And whoever my co-host is, if you want to help me like look at some of those and call them out, y'all don't all start dropping them in at once. I look so excited.
Let's see if we get a few to come up. We got one. Cindy Harrison says very organized with bullets.
Okay. I
Um,
appreciate that, Cindy.
One wanted to say plain and lots of text.
No kidding.
One we have Miss Hinojosa saying that I like to have color. Um, Another too much text based. Someone like the numbered steps. Bullets with sub bullets. We have Jessica Altman, lots of words.
Yeah. Lots of words is probably the biggest thing. And what I found myself doing, you guys are all spot on. Because when I went back and reflected on this process, that's exactly what I was thinking. And what caused me to change the method to my madness. But let me go on to the next slide and show you this. These are some of the things that I got with a couple of my friends, and we came up with just what you said. They're not dynamic or interactive. There's nothing about them that look appealing. I mean, I wouldn't want to go share this with someone. if I send a link to this, you guys, like if I gave Hosea the link to those exact notes and said, hey, Hosea, here's my presentation, drop that in the chat, I would love to know how many of you guys would actually go back and read those. Probably nobody. The other things, they're not easily transferable. They're not eye-catching. Way too many words. The shareability is just, who cares? Nobody wants to be shared that way. And it's hard to make sense of it because there's just too much to process. Essentially, all I was doing was transcribing everything the speaker said in those sessions, but I wasn't really comprehending the information. Okay. So from that, I thought I've got to have a better way of doing this. And I heard at everybody was raving about sketchnoting, right? Sketchnoting is the way to do it. We can sketch our notes out and make these really cool visuals. And I loved the idea of that. But here's the problem. I'm not a really good artist. And I know that's a sad excuse, but I'm just not. I can look at something and draw it, but to do it out of my head, I just really can't do it. But even if I could, I don't know that I could do it fast enough sitting in a session listening to someone present. So that was a problem for me. And then the other issue with it that I had was, how do I share it? Because the purpose for me in taking notes at these conferences was to take what I learned back to my campuses, back to my school district, and share with others. So it just, even though it's an awesome way for people to do that, it just didn't work for me. So insert, let me go back one. Welcome to Polaroid Notes. This is my solution for that problem. I hope you guys are ready for this ride. I'm actually going to show you guys a lot of examples, and I'm going to actually open up like a template, a blank template, and show you how I actually create one in just a little bit, okay? So it'll be fun. So Polaroid Notes, this is what they basically are. They're digital notes that you take with the sole purpose, and you need to really think about this part, the sole purpose of synthesizing the most important information. Remember on my notes before, that was just like everything typed. I wrote down everything the speaker said. With Polaroid Notes, I'm concentrating on the most important information and filtering everything else out. And I'll show you my process or strategy for doing that. And the purpose beyond that is to produce a shareable product that I can give to people as a resource. It can serve as a poster, a graphic, even professional learning on the go, okay? So that's essentially what it is. So then we just snap to what it is. And here are some examples. Just some examples of actual Polaroid notes that I have created, all right? I'm just gonna let you look at that for 1 second. Actual examples that I have made over the last couple of years. So how did I get started with this? Why did I even think to do it this way? So in my former job, like I said, I would go to these conferences. Well, also in my former job, I worked with a group of teachers that we call the Tech Infusion Leadership Team, TILT. And we worked with them several times during the year, and we would always have this time called Digital Playground, where they would be exploring new tech tools that we would kind of introduce them to. And I would make these posters for each of those little stations in the digital playground, and I would make them using Google Slides. And I used Google Slides, and I would change the format of Google Slides, and I'm going to show you how to do that if you don't know, and it is a game changer. So it changed the size, because if you notice these posters, they look like sheets of paper. They don't look like a regular slides presentation. So I changed it to look like a sheet of paper, make these little posters, and we would print them out for these different stations. So I was thinking, man, if I could like use that same method to make my notes, to create my notes, that would be awesome. So that's what I did. TCA 2019. The first time I ever attempted doing it. This is my first shot at making Polaroid notes. I attended a Bookstagram session, and I opened one slides deck, just one Google Slides deck. And on the first slide, I made that format 8.5 by 11, like a sheet of paper. And then I started listening and just really listening to what the speaker was saying, focusing on the most important things. And then I would just kind of start adding different types of color and different size fonts just to make it look better, okay, and to improve it. So that was my first shot. And then I would use that same slides deck and go to the next session. And on a different slide, I would take my notes on the next session. And then on the next slide, I would take my notes on the next session. So by the time that conference was over, instead of having like 50 pages of those notes that were so boring that we looked at earlier, that I would never look at again, I had one slides deck of like 12 different shareable resources that I could just share like that in an instant. Okay. And I'm telling you all this and I'm making it look so easy right now. And you're probably like, yeah, but I couldn't do that. Yes, you can. And I've seen some names of some people that I work with who have done it. They've been in sessions before with me and they have done it. Okay. And you can tell as the progression here, I'm getting a little better, I think, as I go along. Okay. And you're probably noticing some patterns if you're looking at them very closely, some things that are common to all of them. And that's key. And as we go through the steps in a second, you'll kind of see how that breaks down. All right. So I want to know in the chat, what did you notice about these examples as compared to the very boring notes that you saw at the... Oh, Catherine, I agree. Do y'all see what Catherine said? We needed this presentation at the beginning of the conference. My colleague and I, Daryl, we said the same thing. When we submitted our sessions, we put them in the order that we presented today, not thinking that they would actually put them in that order. If we would have been strategic, we would have put this one first. So you guys do this. All right. Don't think this is a lost cause. If you took notes today in your other sessions, you can go back just to practice and create a Polaroid note. You've noticed more exciting, eye-catching, colorful, visually lit. Oh, I love that word, lit. Color, the size, fonts, graphics, all of those things, you are so spot on. You makes you want to look at them. None like my first notes, y'all. And the person who complimented me on my first note-taking attempts, thank you for being kind. Because, yeah, they were super boring and nobody wants to read that. All right, so let's talk about this. We're going to click to why Polaroid notes are beneficial to you, and not just you, but also how could they be beneficial to your students? So here are a few of the reasons why I think they are. They can help you improve your focus. While you're listening to the speaker, you're really focusing on the most important things. You're being purposeful about what you put on the page, and you're not just throwing everything on the page. You can engage your audience with it because they're going to be like, okay, this is something I can digest. It's not too much. You're remembering the content because you're more focused. You can share and collaborate on them because they're digital. You can also print and share them easily because they are in a format that is much like a sheet of paper. So it is amazing, all the reasons why it's so beneficial. So we just clicked to why it's important. And now we're going to zoom in on how to do it. Are y'all ready for this part? Because this part is like the bomb. This is the best part. I saw my friend Charlotte in here. Hi, Charlotte. I know she can't talk back to me, but if you can say hi to me in the chat. I saw you in there, Charlotte. And I saw a few of my other friends too in here. But I know Charlotte's used Polaroid notes before too, and she probably could give you guys some help. In fact, I used one of her templates she put together on my website. So when you go to polaroidnotes.com and look at the templates, in one of my templates, I actually have some Charlotte template contributions to it. So we zoom in on how to do it. We use one Google Slides deck. And the main thing you do is when you create that brand new slides deck, you've got to put the page setup custom 8.5 by 11. You want it to resemble a sheet of paper. Now, nobody says it has to be 8.5 by 11. It could be 11 by 8.5. It just depends on your preference. But you want it to be one of the two because when you print it, you want it to have no problems printing. Like if you wanted to blow it up poster size, you want it to print on a poster paper and not have a problem. Then each slide, I said before, represents one topic Only one. You limit your Polaroid notes to one topic. I've had people ask me before, what if I have too much to put on there? Then you have too much to put on there, okay? So the way that we avoid that is we focus on the big three. This is how we focus in on the most important information. What is the topic? Define it. That needs to be on there somewhere. What are the benefits? What's the purpose of the topic anyway? Why does it matter? That needs to be on there somewhere. And then the third piece that you need to have on there is how. We need practical examples, practical resources, some tips and tricks, those types of things we can throw on there to show how this particular thing could happen or work. Then the beautiful part, to make it so beautiful, is we're going to go in and add images, word art, a variety of colors and symbols and shapes, links out to resources. And I'm going to stress this part here, because if you get bogged down and you're like, I can't put everything on this one slide, then you link out to other things. You can insert a video in place of typing everything. You can insert a link to another presentation or a link to a website or a link to an article in place of typing everything, okay? And those things, when you do them, are going to make your notes pop. Someone asked in the chat, what was the extension that grabs all the fonts and colors? I'm actually going to show that. Thank you, Kimberly, for answering it too. Oh, the one that grabs the type of font too. That one's called Style Scout, Kelly. She must have been in our Chrome extension ones earlier. We talked about this Chrome extension called Style Scout that'll actually grab the colors on your web page and the fonts that were used. And I think I saw a question too up earlier on. Someone asked, did I make my own images? I'm not sure what do you mean by that, but the slides here, these slides, this is my slides deck. Yes, I made the slides deck. This isn't a template. This, I guess it could be a template. It's my template, if that's what you're asking. And if it wasn't, then you can clarify that. Yeah, Brandy, Style Scout is a Chrome extension that you could actually go to any web page. If you were like, say Netflix, for instance. Netflix has that really nice red and black, all those really cool, rich colors and different specific fonts they use on that website. So I could go to Style Scout. Do y'all want me to demonstrate it for you really fast? Because I feel like some of you guys are like, what is it? All right. So I'm going to escape and out of presentation mode. This will take 2 seconds. So on my slide right here, if I wanted to find out what colors I've used on this slides deck, I can click on my extension, which is Style Scout. I've already installed. Click on it. It takes just a second to load it. It kind of hesitates because we're in streaming. All right. It is going to automatically pull up the different fonts that it thinks I probably used throughout this presentation. Okay. It'll pull up some that are similar and some that will be exact. Then over to the right, I can actually click colors and scroll down, and it's going to pick up some of the exact same colors that are in the presentation as well. So that's what Style Scout does. It's kind of being a little slow and draggy. Kimberly, I see your question. Do you create the Polaroid notes while listening to a presentation? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Because this is why I do it that way, and I'll show you some tricks so that you don't think I could never do that. The reason I do it that way is because if I don't, I know I'm not going to go back to it. I just won't, because it'll be the same thing as what I did before. I've got all these written, typed pages of notes. Now I've got to go back and look at those and put them in this format. So that's just taking more time. So that's why I do it on the spot. So some of the tools that I use to really make the notes pop, let's get back into presentation mode to make it easier. To make the notes pop, a lot of the tools that I use are built right into Google Slides, okay? And y'all can quote me on this. I have lots of friends in Humble ISD who've quoted me on this. Insert the toolbar in Google Slides. Insert is your best friend, because when you click on insert in the toolbar, you're going to get a lot of these options. You're going to get an option to add word art, shapes, text boxes, videos, images, all kinds of things just by adding insert. So these are just some tools that I use to make the notes pop. So now I'm going to show you just a couple of examples of some Polaroid notes that not just I did, but some educators like yourselves have created, and also some students, because I've had some teachers use this with their kids, and y'all, these students sometimes do a way better job than the teachers. Sorry, teachers. Sometimes they just do. All right, so when I click on the example link, it takes me to this, and this is sort of just a menu. And I think I'm going to skip all of the ones that were teacher made. Not that I don't love the teachers, because I do. But I also want you to know that this could be something you could use with a student. When they were doing research in their classes, maybe they do their research, like they gather their research and put it into a Polaroid notes style of research. So let's start with the Kingwood High School examples that I have. This is in Humble ISD. So this was a group project. The kids were assigned a personality disorder or some type of a disorder that they had to research. And there are different types of disorders that each one of them had to do specifically. So they were in groups doing this, working in one slides deck, and each person in the group had their own slide, and they would, this is going to open up to their actual slides deck. They made their Polaroid notes from looking at the, do you see how it's changing? You see the narcissistic personality disorder. You see they even did a works cited at the end. Histrionic personality disorder. So they've got one topic on one slide, and how beautiful that was. What a beautiful job. And that's just one example from Kingwood High School. And then I will go back to, let me go back here. This one is from Kingwood High School as well. And if you go back to the very beginning, to the home, you could go back to the menu on this example page, but then you could also see some middle school examples as well. Creekwood Middle, these kids showed up as well. They were doing a project on Newton's laws, and what they did was they did the Newton's 3 laws, and each slide represented one of the laws. And if you go in and look at their stuff, I was impressed. These were middle school students who did these Polaroid notes. Amazing, amazing. So some examples there for you. All right, now here's where we get to the fun part. I've included a template in the presentation. I am not suggesting, guys, that you do this while I'm talking. Although if you feel like you can, go for it. But this slide, if you click on the link, the template link here, it'll open up a copy of the template for you guys, and you can practice doing your own Polaroid notes yourselves. All right. If you feel extremely risk-taking because it's the end of the day, go for it. If you don't want to do that, you can just watch me, because I'm going to demonstrate how I would do this. I'm going to click on the template link, and it's going to give me a preview of this template so I can see this is truly the template, okay? And up in the top right, I'm going to click Use Template, ready to use it. And now by doing that, I've created my very own copy of this template. No one else can see it. It's not shared with anyone else. And in the template, after it loads, you're going to see I put the examples that I was showing you before on the first slide. So there's a reference. You can go back and look at them. On slide 2, I've also put tips, some reminders of how to, oh, Peer Deck, I love you, Peer Deck, but I'm not going to add you. Thanks for asking. I'm not sure why that popped up. And now I can't get it to go away. So slide 2, tips on how to do it. And I went over with those with you guys earlier. Number 3, this is an example of a Polaroid notes that I made on Polaroid notes. So like if you looked at this example, it's going to tell you guys what Polaroid notes is, why it's important, and some tips and tricks on how to do it, okay? And some resources as well. Slide 4 is basically an image of what a Polaroid notes has like what you would put in one without all of the content and all of the colors and images. So here's how we're going to demonstrate. And I hope you guys are ready for this because I'm going to need your help because we only have 10 minutes to do some of these things. Are you ready? I'm just going to assume you're saying yes. So I'm going to show you that. Someone said, how do you create the dotted line border? I'm going to show you that, Brandy. That's part of what I'm about to do. So that was a good question. So here's the thing. I need a topic. Guys, y'all go easy on me with topics. So this can be a topic that is something to do with, it's got to be something that's pretty universal that I would know. So if y'all could just start dropping some topics in there for me, something that you want me to take some notes on, something that I might know. Anybody want to give me one? I'll make one up. I'm feeling like no one's got a good topic for me. No topics. Hosea, you're not seeing any topic. Oh, coronavirus. Baking. She actually. And PD, that's good.
I just hit it in blended learning as well.
I love that. Llamas. Oh, she's speaking my love language. Llamas. Tony, I'm going with you. We're going llamas, okay? I know her too, by the way. Thank you for helping me. She fielded that for me really nice. All right, we're going with llamas. So we're going to pretend the topic is llamas. Now, I told you guys earlier, I start with a slides deck. If I were doing this from scratch, I'd need to open a brand new Google Slides deck and change the format, the page setup to File, Page Setup 8.5 by 11. This one's already set up that way, but I need to show you how to do it. You would simply go to the toolbar, go to File in the toolbar, and I know I just did not do that. I apologize, guys. The llama, see my llama cursor? It was real excited. You're going to go to File, Page Setup, and once it continues or finishes loading, File, Page Setup, and you're going to click on Custom. You're going to scroll down until you see Page Setup. There it is. And you're going to choose Custom, because Custom's not the default. Choose Custom from the drop-down, and then change your inches to 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 8.5, so it will resemble a sheet of paper, okay? So there's your custom setup, 8.5 by 11. Now we're good to go. When you change that page setup, what you've done is you've given yourself some extra space to play with. Do y'all see all the gray space in the margins? This is a great spot to use when you're getting information about your notes and you're not sure where to put them on the slide. Just put them in the gray space. That way they're there and you can hang on to them and move them onto the slide when you're ready. Okay, so the next thing I would do is, you said my topic is going to be llamas, Tony. So I need a title, and I always put a title inside of a shape. So I'm going to go to Insert. Insert is your best friend. Almost everything you put on here is going to be found in the Insert tool. So I go to Insert, Shape, and there are other ways to get to shapes, but I'm just going to use the basic. Insert Shape, and I just usually pick the first rectangle, and I draw that shape like that so that it kind of takes up the top part of the screen. And guys, this is just the way I do it. You can do it ever how you want. Well, it's kind of boring now. It's just super gray and not colorful. So I'm going to go to the fill bucket while that shape is highlighted, and I'm going to change that color to something else. So see the fill bucket here? As long as that shape is highlighted, I can click the bucket, the paint bucket, and change the color. So one thing to note here, and I need to pause and tell you guys this, because if you didn't come to our Chrome extension session this morning, you may or may not know this, but you can customize the colors to fit a theme. Well, let me give you an example. A lot of people get stuck when they're doing the notes and they're thinking, I don't know what colors to use. I would spend so much time trying to figure that out. So here's my strategy for doing that. I connect the colors that I use in my Polaroid notes with the topic in some way, whether it's the presentation that the speaker uses that I'm listening to. Maybe it's the colors they use in their presentation, or maybe that person wrote a book and I can look at the book jacket cover and pick some colors that go with that book jacket. And those are the colors I would use, because now I've got a connection between my notes and also the topic of the presentation. So here I've got a lot of custom colors already loaded from my slides presentation. These are ones that I chose to do based on my logo Polaroid notes. And I don't have time to show you color pick eyedropper, but if you go back and look at our extension session from this morning, you'll see color pick eyedropper in that session. And that's one way you can grab exact colors to use in your presentations. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm just going to change this to, I always like kind of this tealy blue color. And right next to the bucket, you see the outline. Someone asked about the outline, the border earlier. So I can change the color of the border, which it can be whatever you want. So I'm going to leave it like it is. It's kind of a gray color. Right next to it, I can change the thickness of that border. It's called the border weight. And then I can make it thicker so it stands out more. And then next to the border weight, this is where the border dash comes. Someone asked, how do you make the dashes or the dots around the shapes and the word art? You click the border dash and that gives you the option. And then if you're like, that's just not thick enough, I can go back to the border weight and then make it as thick as I need to. And if I don't like the dots, I can change it back to dashes or something. Okay, so that's how you would do the borders around it. And then we said my topic is llamas. So I can either type directly into the shape itself and just type the word llamas for my title. But when I do that, I'm going to have to adjust the font size, change the font. I'm going to have to do lots of steps to make that title bigger. So what I use instead for my big items is word art. And I'm going to show you why. If you weren't a fan of word art before, you sure will be after this. Word art can also be found using the Insert tab. When I go to Insert and scroll down and pick Word Art will function much like shapes do. Yeah, I just inserted that rectangle. I do Word Art. I pick llamas. Look how big it's made the llamas already. Now, instead of messing with the different font sizes, I can just drag from the corners to resize it or make it bigger. Now, I certainly don't like that it's Arial font because that's super boring. I'd probably change it to something else. And then I'm definitely going to get rid of these dashes because I don't like that. And I'm going to make the weight on it smaller. And I'm probably going to make it white, because the reason I'm making the fill color white is because now I'm going to move that title right in the center. See those red lines? That tells me I'm centered. I'm going to move it right in the middle of that shape at the top. Then I'm going to resize it so it fits nice and perfectly right there. Now my page is already starting to look a little bit better from those just simple little tricks, okay? Hopefully you guys are following okay so far. Now the way that I set up my page, typically, you can do yours how you want. But I told you focus on the big three, the what, the why, the how. And I don't always say what, like the word what, and put that on the page, or the word why and put that on the page. But I'll have some variations of that. So for instance, I'm going to start with the what. I'm probably going to create a text box for that. So I went to Insert Text Box, and I'm going to draw a text box right here. And inside this text box, I'm going to define what llamas are. I'm going to give a good definition. I'm going to make my font bigger, give a good definition of it, and start typing it. Llamas are yada, 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 okay? So I've got my what right there, and I'll make that bigger because that's obviously too small. Then after I've got my what on the page, I know the other thing that I'm listening for or reading for is the why. Typically, I'll put my purpose over here to the right, and my purpose is usually I'll take a shape or word art, actually, we'll start with word art, and I'll type purpose because I always like that to be really nice and prominent. And I'll drag that up here and change the font to something cuter. And change the color if I want to change the color. And then underneath it, I'll usually add a text box with some bullets or something like that, okay? So I can go insert text box, throw in some text box here, and then while I've got my text box highlighted, I can go over to the more here, the 3 dots, choose bullets, and start listing my whys, my reasons why, okay? And then my hows are usually, I put them at the bottom, like from the middle of the screen to the bottom is where I start doing the hows. And I'll do the same thing. I'll maybe copy that purpose word art. I'll do right click copy or use my shortcuts. And I'll go down here. And again, I don't necessarily write the word how for that, but I might write tips and tricks, because that's a how. And I might resize it. And then in another place, I might copy that again and move it somewhere else and write resources. And you could have this like your own template ready to go before you even start taking the notes. Then all you have to do is add the content. You know what I mean? You could have the slide ready to go with these types of things and then add the content to it. So with that said, we've got about 10 minutes left. And I want to tell you guys this. Images and videos and links and changing the colors and stuff, that's what's really going to make your notes pop. But all of that stuff is obsolete and does not matter if the content's not good. That's why focusing on those big 3, the what, the why, the how, are the most critical to this process. So after I've established those things, and it doesn't have to be in that order, it's as it comes up, as you learn it. I can go back to insert, and I can search an image straight from Google or upload one, and I can go to search the web, and I could search a llama on the web, because that's what I'm talking about. Hopefully find a real cute one, and just click on that, double click on it, and it'll just drop it in there. Move that llama where I want it. And the beautiful thing about using slides too is I can insert video straight from YouTube or Google Drive from using the insert button. Remember, insert is your best friend. I can go here and search llamas and hope I come up with a really clean video that I'm going to pretend that I just previewed. It's clean and it's short, and I'm going to select it, and I can drop a video in there about llamas to serve as one of my resources. Okay, so that's kind of the gist now. The gist of this, all right? And then you just get as fancy as you want. But here's what I wanted to say about the gray space earlier. Say you're learning these things, you're listening, you're processing, but you're like, I don't know where to put it. I don't know where I want to put it on the page. I know I want to use this video, but I'm not sure it's going to stay here. Well, just drag it over to the side. Drag your image over to the side. Maybe you have to move this over to the side for a while. Do you see what I mean? Use that gray space to your advantage. Put it back where you want it. Change the colors. Nobody says you can't go back to it and change it up later. It doesn't have to be, oh, I have to be totally finished by the end of the session. You can always go back and change it. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and see if there's, actually, let me do this first, if it's okay, Hosea. I'm going to go back to the presentation, and then we'll see if there's any questions, okay? If that's okay.
Oh, that's fine.
Perfect. All right. So the question I want you to ponder, you don't have to respond in the chat to this, but the question I want you to ponder is, how can you see yourself or your students using this? And I saw some people already dropped it in there. And we would love to know how you might use Polaroid notes or any of the other tips and tricks we've shared today as part of our Flipping Good Tech sessions. And one thing we do in our podcast is interview ed tech influencers, like people that present at big conferences and things, but we haven't really brought teachers on our show yet. So we want to have an opportunity to talk to some of you guys, So if you would be interested in being our flipping guest, I think Hosea already dropped the link in the chat. It's a link to a form
Yes, I
where
did.
we awesome. You're so good. We'll get some feedback from you. And then also let us know if you'd like to be considered as a guest on our Connect EdTech podcast. That'd be amazing. So I would love to see, Hosea, if you want to field any questions in the last couple of minutes, and I think we'll be at our time.
Okay. First, I want to make sure you guys go to that link. And if you want to be a guest, go ahead and click where it says be our guest. The link is there for you all to show what you can do with this program as well. And also, we've got 44 different states and 22 different countries. Please drop those ideas in the chat. What you would do with this program, because you're not only going to help someone at your school, but you could possibly help a kid or a teacher somewhere else in the world. So be kind. Go ahead and drop how you would use this in your class. Oh, we got one right here, jigsaw lesson. Guys, if you're looking for ideas, they're in the chat. Okay, they're in the chat. And go back and look at this. I know I am, because I'm going to steal all your ideas and use them for myself.
Good.
So
That's
let's
good.
see. Um, Someone said they would use this for video notes. You may have already answered some of these questions, but I do have one or two for you. Um, the question was, did you make those images during this presentation while you were going about?
What, which images? Are you talking about the examples?
Yes.
Yeah, those examples that I shared with you guys earlier in the presentation, I made those during sessions. I was, instead of typing everything they were saying, I had that slides deck open in front of me, and I was adding the word arts for the titles and the big ideas and searching images. If they referenced a video in their presentation, I was looking for that video on YouTube from inside that Google Slides deck. So yes, I was doing it. And most of the time I was able to complete it during the session, but sometimes I would have to go back to it. And this is why, because some presenters, they're not so formulaic with the way that their structure of the way
Okay.
that they present. But if they're very structured with, okay, this is what it is, this is why it's important, and this is how you do it, if they're going in that kind of order, it is easy to do this.
And before I go to the next question, I'm going to give a shout out to one of our presenters that actually just joined your session, Miss Claudette Van Ravenstein. She actually mentioned this in one of her sessions, using this for virtual teaching and hybrid models, etc. So she is in the chat, and one of her suggestions was giving a weekly newsletter uh, out to your students. So shout out to Miss Claudette Van Ravenstein. It's funny that you were actually presenting one of the things that she suggested in her presentation.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, it's the main thing is just don't forget the purpose of it is to synthesize the most important information. The synthesis of information, the synthesis of information is the most important part of this process. And that's why it's so higher level. It's just not like oh, this is just, we're just making a fun poster or even just an anchor chart. This requires thinking about new information and placement of that new information in a very engaging way onto Google Slides.
And I'm going to give you these two questions that came up, these last two questions. Actually, we saw this a couple of times. I think you showed it, but they may want to see it again.
Mm.
The first part of that is, what is the extension that grabbed all the fonts and colors? And
Okay.
then the second part to that is, we had a couple of questions about how do you create the dotted line? I'm not sure what they're referring to on that, but how do you create the dotted line?
Okay.
Maybe somewhere on the presentation.
I can show them. I'll show them the dotted line super fast.
Okay.
Right here on the presentation, I've got the BR flipping guest highlighted. That's just a shape, right?
Okay.
So I can do that with shapes and word art or even text boxes. As long as I have that shape highlighted, if I go right up here where the fill bucket is, over to the right of it, I'm going to see border weight. And then next to that, border dash. And when I click on border dash, I can select what type of border I want to be around my shape. Okay. And that works for word art also.
Awesome.
And you
Awesome.
asked about the colors. I think we talked about Style Scout earlier, where you can click on install that Chrome extension Style Scout, And when you click on it, what it'll do is it'll search the different fonts and the different color codes that may have been used in the presentation. And then these hex codes, see, these are all the color, a lot of the colors I used. These hex codes can be copied and then used in conjunction with the color pick eyedropper Chrome extension to create a new color or custom colors. Okay.
Awesome, awesome. And so, guys, if you haven't noticed, maybe the last 8 minutes or so, I put the super secret password. The password is success to receive your certificate. Again, the password is success to receive your certificate. Look at the video here. And if you forget, I encourage you to go back on YouTube and watch this video again to get this great information she just gave. This was an outstanding presentation, by the way. I know I got a lot of information. I wasn't even aware of it. Now I am aware of it and I'm going to use it. So this is great. Also, in the chat, let her know, was this helpful to you all? If this was helpful to y'all, give her some love in the chat real quick.
I like the love, please. Yes, I could use all the love.
Yeah, go
Uh, I love all the comments. I didn't get to scroll through and see them all while I was presenting, but I thank you guys so much for being here. This was really fun, and I know it was fast and a lot to absorb, guys, but feel free to go back and watch the video and grab these slides in the Sketch app. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Miss Elizabeth King. You are outstanding. Talking about Polaroid notes from Flipping Good Tech. Check those guys out. And also, don't be afraid to click on that link and become a guest on their show and talk about how you're losing Polaroid notes in your classroom. Don't be afraid to share. Share with everybody. We want to know because we're all in this together right now with this virtual learning, and we can use all the help we can get from each other all across the country, all across the globe right now. So, with that being said, do you have any other parting words for them, Ms. King?
I would say for the BR flipping guest, we would love for you to fill it out, even if you're like, I don't know if I want to be on their show right now, because maybe you will later. But also in there, we've asked some questions to get your feedback on our sessions today, because that's going to help us improve our craft. It's going to help us become better at what we do. And gosh, y'all, we've given y'all a ton of information in a short period of time. But please reach out to us with any questions and follow us on Twitter.
Yes, follow them on Twitter and go on that link and fill out those questions. So they want to know, get some feedback so they can know what to do next time. We maybe see them again, TCCA 2021, maybe. I hope she'll come back because I enjoyed myself thoroughly. But guys, it is a beautiful day outside in Houston. I don't know where it is in your part of the world, but I'm going to say it's beautiful there too because we're all alive. So with
So
that
true.
being said, I'd like to thank Miss Pat Vick. She was in the background grabbing those questions for us and getting those chat questions quickly to me as quickly as she could. I thank everybody for coming out today. This was fantastic and it went smooth, don't you think?
I think this whole conference has gone smooth, and I cannot brag on Aldi ISD and TCCA enough. You guys went over and beyond to make this a great experience for everybody who came. So thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. So with that being said, guys, good golf, good tennis, whatever makes you happy. And remember, wash those hands and social distance. And we will see you next year at TCCA 2021. Bye-bye, guys.